This episode is brought to you by MGM Plus. From and its Horrors returns for season 4, centered around a town that traps all those who enter. Terrifying creatures that come out at night. Horrors some wished had stayed buried. Where desperate hope leads to darker truths. Dangerous new arrivals, a sinister figure, a shocking revelation. From season 4 premieres April 19th on MGM Plus. Some doors should remain closed.
Amazon presents Jeff versus Taco Truck Salsa. Whether it's Verde, Roja, or the orange one. For Jeff, trying any salsa is like playing Russian roulette with a flamethrower. Luckily, Jeff saved with Amazon and stocked up on antacids, ginger tea, and milk. Habanero? More like habanero, yes. Save the everyday with Amazon.
Are you crying?
No.
Are you crying? Are you crying? There's no crying in baseball! No crying!
Live from Joe's mom's basement, it's the Stacking Benjamin Show. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and when you think of retirement, you imagine yourself happy, right? But what's going to make you happy? Today, we welcome the host of the country's longest-running weekly call-in financial show, Money Matters, Wes Moss. Plus, how fun is your Halloween experience for kids? We welcome a guy who's back with more trick or economic treats, the host of the Money Life Show with Chuck Jaffe. It's Chuck Jaffe. And I'll share some of my mind-bending trivia. And now, two guys whose happiness lies in knowing they're helping you retire. It's Joe and O-J-J-J-J-G.
Wait a minute, was that a compliment? Did Doug just give us... Did that just happen?
Doug's all about compliments on a Wednesday. As long as the moon is in the waxing phase and it's in the 10th month of the year. So as long as it's the fourth Wednesday past the first full harvest moon, then he's 100% all about compliments.
It's got to be the Mercury in retrograde thing, right? Something's going on. Something's weird.
It was something like that.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Weird Astrology Podcast for the Win. I'm Joe Saul-Sehy, Average Joe Money on Twitter. Why do I always put for the win on that? I have no idea when that started or why that started, but I got to stop it. What we don't have to stop is having amazing guests like the one and only longest running call-in radio show. A lot of people think it's Dave Ramsey. Nope. Wes Moss, been on in Atlanta well before him. And if you're in Atlanta, of course, you know Wes. If you don't, you're about to meet Wes, who's just a fantastic human being. What the happiest retirees know, OG. We're going to talk to Wes about that. We got Chuck Jaffe. When I was a financial planner, and this is one of the fun things about doing this job, back in the 90s, my favorite writer that I would read everything he wrote was Chuck Jaffe. Chuck Jaffe's Money Talk podcast now. So fun. Chuck has got something he does for Halloween that, it expands every year. So if you're new to the show, you'll hear it for the first time. If you have been with us for a while, you know about Chuck's game, and you're going to hear what he's doing in 2021 to make trick or treat even more fun for the kids. Teach them something about economics. But first,
well, running a small business, as you may know, like I do, it is super fun, but it can also be very tough. And when it's time to get a loan, it can feel impossible to find the lender that you actually trust. Big banks say no. The internet, well, that's full of sketchy offers with sky-high rates and fine print you can barely read. Whether you need help covering payroll, managing cash flow, or investing in growth, you deserve better. And that's why I recommend the small business marketplace Fundera, which is powered by NerdWallet. It's a free, easy-to-use platform. It lets you compare real financing offers from trusted lenders, and it's all in one place. And what I like is that you don't need perfect credit to get started. There's no spam, there's no bait and switch, just personalized options that fit your business needs. Nothing I like better than a place that treats me the way that they would want to be treated. Using Fundera is a super way to quickly compare options and make your best funding move the way any great business owner would. Here's the best part, though. For a limited time, when you visit nerdwallet.com/SB and fill out the no obligation form. You're going to get VIP treatment and talk with a real person who knows all the ins and outs of small business lending. And you can tell them specifically what you're looking for. They can tell you specifically which options you should probably consider most. Don't risk your business on unreliable lenders. Go to nerdwallet.com/SB to learn more and find the funding you deserve. Fundera Inc., NMLS ID number 1240038. Navy Federal Credit Union likes to reward their members for using their credit cards. We like, of course, OG, only to reward people when they actually do it responsibly. You got to pay your credit card off every month or you don't want to play this game.
Interest sucks. Get interest, don't give it.
Yeah, do not play the game. But I like the points. Listen to this. You can now earn up to 1.75% cash back on all purchases with the Cash Rewards card when you sign up for direct deposit. When you use the Navy Federal mobile app, you can redeem your rewards as soon as you earn them. You don't got to wait for them to hit an account or anything. There's no annual balance transfer or foreign transaction fees that sneak up on you. Plus, the rewards never expire. I said on Monday that I had some rewards that I had to use suboptimally because they were about to expire. So annoying. Learn more at NavyFederal.org, insured by NCUA. I forgot to say it right. It's NavyFederal.org. There you go. Insured by NCUA. All right. Wes Moss, Chuck Jaffe, OG, Doug. Let's do this. And here he comes down to the basement for his annual Halloween visit. The Chuck Jaffe is here. Is that spooky enough?
Well, the basement is the scariest place I go every Halloween season.
Don't go over by the furnace, Chuck. Or actually, we should say that differently. Come over here by the furnace, Chuck. Yeah. How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm always good when we get to Halloween.
So for people who don't know what Chuck does, we're going to put in our show notes the link to Chuck's, I think, last 3 appearances now, where every year he ups the ante on a Halloween game. You can either, number one, just get some candy from the Jaffe household, or you can play Chuck's increasingly risk-like Halloween game. So what's up the Chuck Jaffe sleeve this year, my friend?
Yeah, well, you know, it started cash or candy.
Yeah.
Then it went to trade or treat where, yes, you were up the risk scale a lot. And now because of COVID, I think we're sort of back more to cash or candy. Also because a whole bunch of people were sending me notes going, no, seriously, dude, you're sending people from your house away with nothing, or worse yet, that they've given you candy and they leave with nothing. You can't do this. This is
we've talked about this before. The kids chose that.
They did. This year, I've added an interesting twist. What we did last year was we made it that there was no trading. That's why COVID ended our trading. You couldn't give me candy that you had touched, et cetera. And I couldn't reach into your bag to just grab it or whatever. Yeah. So there was no trading last year. So last year, what we did was you dress up and come to my house, 3 pieces of candy, pre-inflation, about 12.5 cents a piece. So congratulations, 37.5 cents of value for coming to my house. That's your starting point. And so last year you could trade it for $1 gift certificate from the local ice cream shop, right? Straight up, 37 cents or $1. But remember that if you were old enough, you could ride your bike to the ice cream shop. And I really wanted to support a local business struggling through the pandemic. But if you were a little bit younger, you might need your mom to take you. So you could trade it for $1. Or you could pick from envelopes that had between 50 cents or $5, or you could pick the lottery option, which was every envelope was empty except for one with a $10 bill and one with a $20 bill. So you could play for big money, but you were probably going home with nothing. So this year, because we're still kind of in COVID protocols, I have to stay with I can't really touch anything.
And before we get to that, let's talk about last year. Last year, obviously, the layup choice was to take the $1 gift certificate, right? I mean, you easily triple your money. You come to the Jaffe house, you get a 200% return. Just fantastic idea.
Yes, but you then have to make it that you're going to get to spend that $1. Yeah. Like it's still $1 in value. For some of those kids, they'd rather take the chance and go, wait, I'm going to get some money if I play
good point
just for whatever. So they could do it. And I think actually last year, now that I think about it, it was 25 cents to $5. So you could actually lose just a little bit. Your value could come down to a quarter, I believe.
But still not that bad. I mean, a pretty decent risk reward scenario.
So yeah, last year we wound up with kids kind of going all over. It was kind of a split. But this year, the only change we're making is that when you lose the lottery, the thing that tells you, sorry, you lost, will tell you, but if you present this to me between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'll give you $1. Come and say hello, find me, give it to me, and I'll cash it in for $1. So you have a second chance if you want to use it. Now, the kids are not going to know that in advance, but that way I salve the guilt of I sent you home with nothing. And I give you a chance. And here's the question that I'm really going to have, which is, will they do it? Right? It's worth $1. You can find me out doing my leaves. You can find me out whatever, anytime my car is home. And this is really serious because we live in times where people don't know their neighbors. I live in a neighborhood of cul-de-sacs, but I'm like the last one standing from my generation. In other words, I'm the guy who no longer has kids who go to the bus stop. Our neighborhood is like 70 houses. There's only 1 or 2 of us who are in that boat. And I don't want to be the creepy old guy that the kids are afraid to talk to with the old dog who, you know, I don't want to be that. So I'm much less threatening because we talk, but I love supporting the kids, whether it's lemonade stands or, if you're selling wrapping paper for high school or elementary school fundraiser, bring it to me. So I don't want that to stop. I want to have good relations with my neighbors. This is one way that I do it, even if it's just with the kids.
I think commercial wise too, there's some lessons here because I can't think of the number of times that I have had a mail-in rebate afterwards, right? So I get this purchase and it is a mail-in rebate where I get X amount off and I never send it in. I mean, never send that thing in. And so I end up losing out just because I don't follow through. So the follow through piece of this, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see what happens because there will be some kids who go, when you're the only house in the neighborhood giving away money, pretty much everybody's going to take the money. And by the way, I should point out, I do this only for kids 3rd grade and up. Kids who are below 3rd grade, here's your candy and go. Because while you can get them making financial decisions, and if I were simply doing what I did the first year, hey, you can have candy or you can have an envelope that has some money in it, then I would give younger kids a choice.
Sure.
But when I'm making the choices complex so that I can write about it, because let's face it, this is worth it to me. It's like, okay, on the one hand, it's expensive for Halloween. On the other hand, it's cheap for me to go, I got an easy column out of it. So I'm perfectly happy to fund this that way. But I think that that's a big part of it. And I urge people, do this. Be the one in your neighborhood who does it. Because I can promise you, little Liam from a couple of doors down who won $20 a few years ago, he's going to remember me for the rest of his life. He may not remember my name, but he's going to remember the day that he went out trick-or-treating and managed to turn 3 pieces of candy that he would have gotten into $20.
No, he's going to remember the day, Chuck, that he got $20 from you. He turned around and put it in Shibubu coin, and now he's a bajillionaire because he was one of the first ones in.
Well, his father happens to be a financial advisor.
So he's probably not going to do that.
And the fascinating thing is, so he won 2 years ago. When he came back last year, he didn't play the lottery option. He took the safe option. And I'm like, Liam, you're ahead of the game for the rest of your trick-or-treating life.
You're betting the house's money now, Liam.
Exactly. And he's like, nope, I figured I wouldn't get that lucky 2 years in a row. So I wanted to take the sure thing.
Kid's got a risk tolerance like mine.
But the kid's risk tolerance, the first time, he couldn't give me his 6 pieces of candy because that's what it cost him. He couldn't give me 6 pieces of candy fast enough. And then last year, he's like, nope, I'm Mr. Conservative. I got my money, protecting it now. And I love that. And I will point out that I put into each envelope the kids pick, I put an explanation of what your choices were, etc. And I tell the kids, don't open it in front of me, take it home. And then when you open it, celebrate or don't celebrate it with your parents and have discussions so that they can ask their parents, what would you do? And have a discussion about money. Because the one thing I am certain of, is that no kid, and I say this as a kid who loves candy, and I'm still a big kid, I'm happy that I buy a lot less candy and I have a lot less leftovers. And trust me, when they were trading candy to me, I bought almost no candy. I just kept recycling theirs.
Yeah.
But the lessons are amazing. I mean, the first year I did this, where we had a trade, I had this gaggle of girls, like 7 girls come up at one time. They have sacks of candy. They are all, the first 6 are, take the money, reach in and grab a handful of my candy. I don't care, whatever you want. And I'm like, nope. So I pull out, and I think it was the year there was just one piece of candy. And the 7th girl, she goes, I want the candy. And she reaches into my bowl and she pulls Snickers bars. And I said, interesting. All your friends played. Why are you playing for candy? She goes, Snickers bars are my favorite. They're probably on top because you pulled them from like half of my friends from where we had just stopped. And she goes, I have a rule with my parents. They can't take Snickers bars. So it's the candy that I want the most.
That girl's destined to become a life insurance actuary. True story.
But she got exactly what she wanted.
Sure.
So what do you want for your money, right? What would we all like to get for our money? How about if our money buys us exactly what we want? We take a choice thinking about this. How many people do you and I know who have worked their whole life to accumulate money and have a tough time spending it, right? It's tough for them to think, oh, I can afford a more comfortable class when I'm traveling or whatever. This is somebody who at a very early age goes, wait, I could have made more money or I could have gotten exactly what I wanted. Sometimes the life lesson is buy exactly what you want. If you can afford it, which she could in candy terms and whatever else, get what you want. That's its own lesson. I mean, that's part of the fun for me is that we're teaching way beyond all of the, hey, are you taking cash? Are you taking candy?
I just wish you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, it'd be the perfect thing. Like then it would be fine.
I will tell you a way that somebody else enjoys it. One of my listeners on Money Life, my show, is a guy who lives in a place where he knows he doesn't get many kids for Halloween. So what he started doing for cash or candy was he makes up a dozen envelopes. They have 50 cents and one has $5. And then he goes and he buys full-sized Almond Joy bars.
Wow.
And then when you come, he offers you a choice. You can have the big candy or you can have an envelope. He does this because A, he doesn't want much in the way of candy. B, his wife's favorite candy is Almond Joys. So he is winning Halloween.
No matter what.
He wins Halloween.
He has stacked the deck.
Exactly. Oh, by the way, if you take the cash, statistically, he comes out better. He's bought his wife the full-size bars, would probably cost $1, but most of the kids are winning 50 cents. So congratulations.
Retains his capital.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, you know what? I'd take the envelope too, Chuck, because Almond Joys are nasty. Just absolutely. I can't do it. Most people look at me and they go, dude, how do you make 3 shows a week? You make 5 shows a week. What's coming up on Money Life? You're going to obviously be talking about this next week, I assume, right? What happened on Halloween?
We will discuss the results. Absolutely. Because, I set it up at some point. And if folks want to find about it, if they go to the website for the show, moneylifeshow.com, and they look in my columns, they'll find a column that I wrote that basically set up Halloween. Because I always encourage people to try this in their own version. And so, yes, I will do that. My show, Joe, is totally guest driven. And we have some amazing people that we're talking to, whether it's Chris Davis, the founder of the Davis Funds, who is later on this week, or Fei-Fei Li, the director of research at Research Affiliates, and what have you. It's really, let's talk to the best and brightest minds at pretty high levels. That's the fun. I mean, I get paid to play.
I can't wait. I'll be listening next week to find out. Money Life with Chuck Jaffe on 5 amazing days a week. Chuck, thanks for hanging out with us, my friend.
Always a pleasure, and good luck with your book. I can't wait to talk with you about your book on my show.
Big thanks to Chuck Jaffe for hanging out. How about that, OG? Turn it into a game. Halloween as a game.
Now they're calling it the Hallow Weekend.
Oh, come on.
It was a Target ad that I heard, and I was like, that's interesting branding.
Well, 3 times the candy, 3 times the fun, right?
That's right.
I'm down with that.
You only give out the big candy bars, I know. Or do you give out apples and nickels? You're one of the 2
What are you talking about?
You're an apple nickel guy, aren't you? I knew it.
No, you know what I always hated? Those people that gave out like the crappy
popcorn balls.
Yeah, come on. No, give me something good. Like a Snickers. I'll take the Snickers. But playing Chuck's game. Good stuff. Hey, coming up in a second, Wes Moss joining us for What the Happiest Retirees Know. He is not only the host of the longest running financial talk show in the nation out of Atlanta, Georgia, but he also is a fantastic financial planner. Wes going to join us. He did some work on What the Happiest Retirees Know. That's coming next, but look who we got here. Doug, what do you got for us, man?
Hey there, stackers. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. You know, according to this bizarre holiday calendar, it's National American Beer Day. And I'm excited to report that I've been celebrating all morning. Wikipedia says beer is one of the oldest and most widely consumed alcoholic drinks in the world, and the third most popular drink overall after water and tea. And who needs water? Anyway, according to Best Life Online, you know, where I go for all my reliable information, what's the best-selling beer in the United States? I'll be back with your answer right after I figure out the puzzle on this Schaefer's cap.
Well, there's nothing that relieves stress more when you have had a long day, you are completely fried, and you're thinking to yourself, maybe I'll just go out to dinner. But then you think about all those calories, all that money out of your wallet, and then you realize that you can eat healthy because you found Factor. Factor is ready in 2 minutes. Factor shops, preps, cooks, and delivers straight to your door, so you have more time for everything you love this spring, and you don't have to worry about eating healthy and going outside your budget because you've got the food sitting there in the fridge that you had pre-planned. What is Factor? Well, Factor has meals built around your goals, whether that's weight loss, overall nutrition, more protein, or GLP-1 support for strength and workout recovery. Check out Factor's Muscle Pro collection. Every meal's crafted with functional ingredients, lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, and healthy fats. Factor bans 175 plus ingredients. No artificial colors or sweeteners, no high fructose corn syrup, no refined seed oils, just nutrient-dense foods. It's fresh, never frozen, over 100 rotating weekly meals, including globally inspired flavors like Mediterranean and Asian, so there's always something new to look forward to. I use Factor. I think you're going to love it too. Head to factormeals.com/SB50off, stackers, and use code SB50off, and you're going to get 50% off and free daily greens per box with new subscriptions only while supplies last until 9/27/2026. I had a breakfast mentoring meeting yesterday with a young woman who was just amazing. She is graduating from college with a degree in wealth management, and she reached out hoping for some pointers. And listen, if somebody's in Texarkana and wants to go into this beautiful field of personal finance and helping people get their money together, that is incredible. But even more incredible is how she reached out, how she was trying to network. And I was having a discussion that finding the right person and avoiding the wrong person for a role, that's what can make or break an organization. And we just don't see that many qualified people. So how do you find them? Well, Indeed sponsored jobs is a boost whenever you need to find quality talent. If you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. You can stop struggling to get your job post even seen on other sites. You'll match with quality candidates with Indeed's sponsored jobs. Get matched with and hire quality candidates who can drive the results you need. Reach candidates who meet your specific criteria like skills, certifications, or location. It drives me crazy when I'm matched with all kinds of people who aren't a fit. I don't have that kind of time. People are finding quality hires on Indeed right now. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 95% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all the boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored job. And here's what's cool, Stackers. You're going to get $75 in sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support Stacking Benjamins by saying you heard about Indeed right here at Stacking Benjamins. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed.
Hey there, Stackers. I'm famous bar patron, lounge lizard, and beer aficionado, Joe's mom's neighbor Doug. Ah, beer. You know, nothing I like better than hanging out with the guys talking about beer. We'll laugh about how the icy cold beverage is produced by the brewing and fermentation of starches, mainly derived from cereal grains, most commonly from malted barley, though wheat, corn, rice, and oats are also used. I mean, we just laugh and laugh. Then we'll all lean in and talk about how that sweet, delicious fermentation of starch sugars brewed with hops, adding bitterness and flavors, and that act as a natural preservative and stabilizing agent, it just makes it all come together. Good times, good times. So there's good beer, and then there's popular beer. What's the best-selling beer? According to Best Life Online, you know, where, again, I go for all my reliable information, it's not Heineken, which came in at number 9. It's not Natural Light, Busch, Miller Lite, Coors, or Corona, though they, too, are in the top 10. Number 3 is surprisingly Modelo, whatever. Number 2 is Michelob with their Mick Ultra label. And the number 1 beer in the United States of brewskis? Of course, it's the king of beers, Budweiser. Now, here comes the guy who's the king of Atlanta Money Radio, Wes Moss.
Here he comes down the stairs to the basement. It's my new BFF. Wes Moss is here. How are you?
Joe, it's so cool to be in the basement. Thank you for having me. I know the last time we saw each other was probably Austin, Texas, but great to be here. When did you get an aquarium? Are you a fish lover? Where did that come from?
Well, you know, Doug needs something to do. He needs to go fishing, and we can't have him leave the basement. So, dude, we have to give him something. He'll look at how he stares at the fish. Check that out.
He's eyeing them. Yeah, it's an easy target.
It is. It is amazing. Speaking of targets, a tough target is finding retirees that are actually happy, my friend, because you know this. We had a person on the show just a couple of weeks ago who talked about how to be sad, Helen Russell. And Helen talked about, we have this thing that's the fallacy of arrival, that with all the work you've done with so many people helping them get to retirement, we think that I'm unhappy now, but when I arrive at X spot, I will all of a sudden become this happy person. And Helen said, that's a big lie. She's somebody that just studies it. You're somebody that's worked with these people.
It is, and it's dramatic too. And the thought that we're going to get to this place of, hey, we've got some financial freedom, and now all of a sudden I don't have to go to the job that I kind of don't love anymore. There is this thought that we're going to get to this place of financial freedom, and then we're going to be able to stop our job. And I always talk about this, the Gallup study that always talks about employee engagement, and the numbers, they wax and wane a little bit, but the reality is only about 20 to 35% of Americans really love or engage in their job. That means 65% are really just so ready to get out. And 1 in 5, as we know from the same Gallup study that I've studied now, it's updated 20 different times over the past 20 years, is that they hate their job so much they're trying to bring their company down. And there's this thought of, oh, I just stop working and I've got just enough money to do it, or maybe plenty of money to do it. And all of a sudden the skies will open and everything's going to be kitty cats and candy canes, and it's not. In fact, there's a lot of evidence, Joe, that shows that the transition is brutal. It's really easy to tip into levels of higher unhappiness, more depression, more anxiety prescriptions, by the way, once people retire. And then even longevity. Our longevity is impacted very often.
It's got to be because of unmet expectations, I would think. We have all these big expectations that are ahead of what it's going to be. And when none of that materializes, Wes, it's gone.
It's the best trip ever. Think about when we go on a trip. It's rare that the trip ever lives up to how exciting it is to plan for the trip. And I think it's the same thing with retirement, is that we think it's going to be amazing and perfect just because it is what it is. And we've heard about it and we've thought about it. The reality is, in order to make it this amazing experience and in order to have it be extraordinarily fulfilling and exceed our expectations, there's a lot inside of that recipe to work on before your last day at work.
You start with your dad, who was a large animal veterinarian near Amish country, and he would haul you around and you would meet these fascinating people that, by the way, we had Amish country just south of where I lived, Amish and Mennonite country. So lots of horse and buggies that we would go around down the road and people living a whole different life than I was living. But tell me that story about going around with your dad.
I grew up going on these farm calls with my dad and going in the dark in the morning to a cold morning on an Amish farm. We're mostly dairy farmers. And it's like going back to the 17th, 18th century. Nothing has changed for the Amish. It's still gas lanterns. It is no electricity, no television, no radio, no podcasting. They'd say, hey, can we go in your dad's truck and listen to the radio? Like it was this amazing thing. I'm like, how poor guy. I'm like, guys, this can't be. So I grew up having this window into a group of people that they chose to live. They could have had all the money in the world, but they chose to live as they many centuries ago. And that experience is always stuck with me about the life that they live. Their level of happiness seemed to be through the roof, despite basically choosing not to live with any money. And the last piece of story there is that I remember balance beaming in this barn where the cows all stand in one row and they all just stand there, right? This is a dairy farm and they're just there for the milk and they're standing there all day. And all they're doing is below all the cows' rear end, they just go to the bathroom all day long. And as a 5-year-old, think it'd be great to balance beam along this way. And
oh, no.
And it was a cold November morning in Pennsylvania. My father spraying me off with a hose. And he was just basically saying, Wes, you're such a dumbass, for doing that. And I remember thinking, I will never, ever do what this guy does for a living. I will never be a veterinarian. And that came that day, and I have never forgotten.
And that's how you went into finance. But that's an interesting story because you talk about your dad when he sold his business, about your dad seemed very happy, but he was also, when he retired, was able to make kind of a smooth retirement then out of that business.
Yeah. Again, it was such a big part of his life. Having a practice, he was large animal for a long time. Then he was small and large. And then he ultimately was small animal. And he did it for 43 years. And he still is like this to this day. And he's been retired for a few years now. But his transition has been so good because it wasn't that he was tired and sick of being a veterinarian. It's not that he disliked being a veterinarian. But what he kind of, in my mind, anecdotally, let's say, and this is why I went out and did research around this, has so much curiosity. And I say in the book that curiosity may have killed the cat, but a lack of curiosity kills the happy retiree. And he has so many different things that what I call core pursuits, that it's almost this model of he plays guitar and he teaches fencing, like as in like fighting, right? He's like a reenactor of all sorts, the Revolutionary War, Civil War, but all of these different core pursuits that revolve around whether he's working on the farm, gardening, raising, doing something, reenacting, playing music. It's just such a long list of things that occupied his time when we were kids beyond being a veterinarian. And all that's done is accelerate for him. And here's a sign of a happy retiree. I'm busier today than I've ever been.
Oh, yeah.
That's the retiree that's super excited about their next phase. By the way, they have 3.6 core pursuits. That's the average. And more is better. 5 is better. 8 are better. Now, you can't have 100, but happy retirees have this insatiable curiosity of, I want to do something new. And what I'm already doing, I want to get even better at it. And it's just this lifelong journey. And the root of the word pursuit, and I don't know the etymology of this, let's say, but pursuit also is cousins with pursue, which is also your pursuit in life and your passion in life and your purpose in retirement is just a must have.
You've heard this 100 times being in financial planning, because certainly I've heard this for the past 25 years, which is you're not retiring from something, you're retiring to something. That's really what you're talking about. Your dad had all these other things he just didn't have time for, right? That now he wants to have time for.
Right. He probably had time for 3 or 4 of them. And really, he listed out, and I actually have a copy of this letter that I published a copy of the letter with his permission in the book.
Yeah.
He's a kind of a private guy. I was like, you should have a YouTube channel about, he makes saddles like out of leather. And I was like, this is such a fascinating thing. You should have a YouTube. He's like, hell no, I'm not gonna have a YouTube channel. But in the letter, he listed out all these crazy things that I've never even thought of. Like he listed cowboy poetry.
Yeah. Can I read them to you?
Sure.
Your dad writes in his letter, I must admit that I approached this change of life with mixed emotions. While stepping away from veterinary medicine is hard, as many of you know, I have a few other interests that I look forward to pursuing. And this gets to your list, Wes. Geology, Civil War medicine, fencing, leatherwork, fox hunting, trail riding, woodworking, sewing, time traveling through historical reenacting, music, art, cooking, blacksmithing, and the one you just mentioned, cowboy poetry, and more! Exclamation point. Like he's got this list that's so long he can't even print the whole thing in this letter to his family.
So he's a musician, he's a guitar player, and he's a pretty good guitar player. And
he's a Renaissance man, Wes.
He's a lot of stuff. And I would say I'm also proud of him too, because he's pushed the limit. When you're a musician, usually people have their role. And if you're not a pro musician, you kind of stick to your lane. Versus somebody who might be awesome at guitar and piano and sing. And that's maybe not my dad. But one of the first things he did after he retired is he went and he did 3 songs that he wrote on stage. And he sang them at this like cowboy poetry festival. And it was like it was nerve-wracking for him to do. But I was just proud of him. And it's just a great example of it doesn't matter what any of these things are. It's a matter of you love them so much that you're willing to continue to get better at them and push the limits. And there's really never a bad time to start something new or get better.
That is one of the core tenets that you found about being a happy retiree. Another one was a couple that you worked with. This is Ron and Rita. And Ron and Rita are coming out of COVID. They're super excited. They finally get the family back together, like getting the band back together, right? Tell me what Ron and Rita were planning.
So I talk a little bit with my mom because she is a avid tennis player, and that's one of her big things in the world. And tennis, we've heard, obviously can help. It's actually the most longevity producing sport you can do in retirement. It adds something like 9.7 years to life expectancy. But Ron and Rita, Margarita, are actually it's really the pseudonym for my in-laws. They really wanted to get everybody together. If you think about COVID, was this time of separation. And COVID is part of the equation. And 2, how do you then get everybody together and still be able to do it within budget? And they're emblematic of so many retirees that I've worked with that are really eager to do something big with the whole family. In some cases, it's going to safari and it's going to cost a bunch of money. Can I afford it? Is it worth it? Because I get my whole family together. Sometimes it's a family reunion. And the story of Ron and Rita, Margarita, is really just that how could they afford this almost wedding-like, if you will, event that's going to cost a bunch of money? And going through kind of the financial planning of that was a lot of fun. And I'm always a big believer, if it has to do with one of your core pursuits in life and it has to do with socialization, it has to do with family, then the chances are it's probably worth every single penny when it comes to what it costs.
So you're not against some of these big weddings, right? You see people talk about, well, you shouldn't blow a bunch of money on one of these big wedding things. It seems like based on that, you're pro big wedding.
You know, Clark Howard has been kind of my radio mentor over the years, who is in Atlanta long before I ever even started media. And he's always about save more, spend less, spend less, spend less. I might be on the other end of the spectrum there. The way I look at budgeting and spending is as long as we have a couple of these core financial checkpoints. And one of the chapters in the book has to do with, I'm a huge believer in understanding what I call the 4% plus rule. And we all have heard of the William Bengen study, the MIT guy that went back out through history and said, how much money, what's the max I can take out of my investments and never run out, or have a high probability of never running out. And in 2017, he hadn't updated that study since like the early 90s. So my whole team, we redid the whole thing, and then we redid it in 2020 again. So if you go back over the course of really 100 years of economic history, you can really take out anywhere from 4 to 5%, including updating that for inflation every year, increasing it for inflation. And depending on how you operate with that, your money's going to last, again, 90% of the time. 30 to 50 years plus, forever. So as long as you are operating under that 4% plus framework, which is this very dynamic, important rule of thumb, then I think you should be able to spend whatever you want on anything you want, whether it's a huge trip or a round the world flight or a big wedding or a big family reunion. I think those are all on the table as long as you can use that 4% plus rule that gives you some leeway in any given year.
Let's be a little less judgy about it.
Go and spend.
Yes. Well, if it makes you happy, which I want to juxtapose this, and then we're going to dive into a few of what you found out from your research, because you got into this research then because you've got Ron and Rita Margarita, you've got your dad and your mom, you've got the Amish people. They're all these happy people doing the things they want. And then you read in 2019, a Wall Street Journal article that even reading you, Wes, it sounded like you wanted to just torch the newspaper.
I was so mad because I had written this book, You Can Retire Sooner Than You Think. It was all about all the financial checkpoints to be able to clock out earlier than you might have thought. And it included my earlier research on what happy retirees were able to do, the habits of the happy group. This is my earlier research. And what I ultimately found in that book as I was writing it is that they ended up crossing over a bunch. So the happy retirees, their habits typically were the folks that had early possible retiree dates. And I get so much momentum with that book and all this happiness research, and I'm really hitting my stride. And then I remember seeing this article, something like the case against
early retirement.
Yeah. And I was so angry the way he approaches how much money we can spend, because I think at one point and it's not just him, there are other people that have published on this, that you could only use something like 2.7% of your money. And then I remember around the same time of that article, Susie Orman had written that you should minimum have 5 million, but better to have 10 million, and you should work at least until you're 70.
And I think you have to have a private island, by the way.
On the cover of Kiplinger's.
Yes.
And the way I look at that, if one expert's saying you have to work forever and have 10 million minimum, so basically the only way not to run out of money is to work until you die. That's a good strategy. And then one guy's saying, well, you can only use 2% of your money. Then I start to say, what's the message that's sending? And to me, the message is, well, it's never enough.
More hamster.
You never can save enough. If you do, you can't really use it. Like, what's the point if you can only use 2% per year? So I wanted to try to be more practical. Like, where can we find a better balance of all the work to save? And then how do we use it best so that we don't have to budget as much? As long as we follow that rule, it takes care of the budgeting for you. And that's where I land, Joe, somewhere in the middle.
Well, I love this because it's a combination, Wes, of numbers and the stories that you led off with, which is, the issue of what is happy, right? I mean, we spent the first 15 minutes just talking about what does happy even mean? And there seems to be this big disconnect. So you do this monster study about the happiest retirees. And let's walk through these. You say that the happiest retirees have excellent money habits. They have $500,000 or more in savings. Their mortgage payoff is complete, or at least in sight, and they have multiple streams of income. I'm going to walk through each of these. Mortgage payoff complete. You and I get people all the time, you on the radio show, us on the podcast, you even on the podcast as well, because you're all over the place. These professors telling you that you shouldn't pay off the mortgage. But you're saying that the happiest retirees do pay off their mortgage, or they're awful damn close to doing it.
This was just research. And I remember, I think the question, and I've done now, I think 5 or 6 different studies that are into this. The original one was back in 2013. Then I did another one in 2019, et cetera. I've done many of these money, happiness, habit studies. And one of the earlier findings I had, I think it was Rick Edelman that wrote a whole book about not paying off your mortgage. You're crazy to pay off your mortgage. You can make 10% of the market. Mortgages only cost, I think at the time, 5. Now they cost like nothing now.
Sure, right. Even better math now.
Even more so now. But I think it was through the financial crisis in like maybe 07, 08, when we went through a mortgage crisis. I remember the calm of the families that I worked with as a financial professional doing this for a living, of just how easy they sailed through. To me, it is the most fascinating relationship that I would never in a million years have expected to be this well documented, is that as years to pay off mortgage go down, literally light at the end of the tunnel, under the end of the tunnel getting bigger, like, oh, I'm almost done paying Wells Fargo every month. As years to pay off mortgage go down, happiness levels go up. Period. End of story. Another way to look at the data is that retirees that are within 5 years of paying off their mortgage or having it paid off, they're four times more likely to end up in the happy group. So to me, that threw the financial conversation not out the window, because it's still valid that what Edelman, let's say, says, make 10, only costing you 4,
sure,
make 10 all day. But the less tangible or psychological side to making that decision to get rid of the mortgage is even more important and more powerful than the financial argument in order to keep a mortgage.
We already talked about number 2 here. Happy retires. You're curious and adventurous with at least 3 core pursuits. I think you said 3.6, but the third one on here, they love their kids and see them regularly, but their kids are independent, meaning they booted their butts out of the house at 18. I mean, they have their own lives. Is there a line there versus, because I feel like you're looking at me, Wes, when we're here in mom's basement.
I don't know what you pay in rent, but I'm sure it's grand.
We get to be.
Who pays for this aquarium over here? This thing is like the Atlanta aquarium.
But this idea about separation from family, independence, but also this attachment. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. We want our kids nearby, but we don't want them in the house. And one of the ways I found that out beyond asking that specific question was finding out how much we support our adult children financially. You know, when you and I were in our teens, and we're dating ourselves a little bit here, is that particularly the baby boomer generation was like this. It's like, as soon as you got your license, at 16, you're driving. As soon as you could get out to school, you're gone. And then you got married really early in your 20s on average. There have been a lot of societal changes that have led to, and maybe this is just the cost of school, Joe, like everything's way more expensive.
Right.
School education, the inflation is like 12% a year on average. So maybe it's just a function because it's just so much harder to afford for our youth to get out of the nest earlier. But I wanted to understand the relationship, and happy retirees actually do end up spending less money on average on their adult children. That was my question. How much do you support every month for your adult children, not your teenagers, but your adult children that should technically, in your mind, be out of the house? And they spend on average a lot less per month than the unhappy retiree group does. And the unhappy retiree group, for a variety of reasons, and a lot of times in this book, I just present the data. I give you my opinion, but I don't know if that's right or wrong. I'm just presenting the data, is that the unhappy group has allowed their children to stay less independent. And I'm not talking about just trips to like, hey, we're going to help on a trip to Disney. I'm talking about like car payments, private school tuition. So it's important to get the kids off the payroll.
Halfway through the book, you have that in all caps, by the way, as I turn the page and I see stop financially supporting your children in all caps.
My kids are too young to know about that yet. I mean, my oldest is 14 all the way down to 5. So I've been telling them, I'm like, guys, listen, it's going to lead to an unhappy life if by the time you're 21, you're still asking me for money.
It goes directly to, and you know when you hear the truth is when you start hearing this research circle and different researchers finding the same thing. Back to Helen Russell, who you and I opened with talking about, and her How to Be Sad, is that when you try to shelter your kids from sadness by helping them out a little, they're sadder living with you than they would be if they were out on their own anyway. And they need to have that little bit of deeper sadness of getting on their feet, I think, to experience true happiness. And you're not going to have yours either if you don't get there, I would think.
Right, exactly. It works both ways. It's good for kids to be out, and it's great for you for them to be out.
Yes. Oh, it makes me feel so good that my kids who are 26 are on their own, doing their own thing, and they still want to talk to us. You know, they still want to talk to us. They still want to hang out with mom and dad. But it's funny because you go from thinking my kids are going to be badasses, they're going to rule the world, to I just hope they're happy. And that they can do their, and that they can live on their own.
You're so right about that. And my philosophy now is having a fourth kid is just like, it's almost a 180 from the first kid. Like the first kid, it's like, don't they need to do this lesson and that lesson and learn 3 languages? And by the time I'm on the fourth kid, I'm like, I just want these kids to be able to not go to jail, make a living, and get out of my house, but still live relatively nearby, which is another really important habit.
Well, and there's a lot more in here. And if people want more, they can read the book because there's so many cool things that you found out about happiness and so many things. After I read it, Wes, I thought, okay, that makes sense. But at first it was very surprising. In fact, I know that going through this, I'm sure there had to be some of this stuff that surprised you. You're like, that doesn't make sense. What's one thing that really surprised the hell out of you as you're doing all this research?
There's a lot. So the marriage and happiness timeline is fascinating to me. The different phases of marital happiness relative to how we spend our money. It kind of goes from it's all about me, and then it's about us, then it's about them, as in the kids, and then the kids leave, and then so that relationship and the happiness and marital timeline is really fascinating to me, all the way down to the proximity of our children. I'll leave.
Well, wait a minute before we get there. I just want a little clarification there. Do we tend to get happier? Because I look like it, Cheryl and I think we were happy enough, like blissful and ignorant, to happy, to not that happy, to very unhappy, to more happy than ever before. Like a U shape.
Yeah, I'd almost look at it as though it's a little square rooty, but there's actually no way there's maybe it's an upside down praying mantis. There's really no shape for this except for we have a ton of happiness early on in marriage, and it lasts for a while. And then something happens that absolutely craters it for most people. And there's a lot of variables that do it, but perhaps a big one is that all of a sudden, all that spending that used to be on just us as a couple now is on them. And that's a really tough adjustment. And then as over time, if the kids get independent, and this is why in general, once you have this big crater, there's some oscillation in marital happiness when it comes to the number of years, but it does generally rise as we get older. Maybe you're in that point now where, because your kids are what, 26?
Yeah. So it seems
how many kids do you have?
Just two.
You have two. Okay.
We have twins.
And are they in Texas or where?
No, my son is an engineer with Microsoft in Seattle, and my daughter teaches English in Japan.
See, they do rule the world.
Yeah, but I don't care about any of that. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're doing great stuff that they love. And by the way, my daughter's in a profession that she absolutely loves and making no money and comfortable with it. She's got the tightest budget I know of. She's like the world's best thrift shopper. My son has 7 rental properties that he's fixing up in a career that he loves and doing this far out stuff. But you know what I mean? They're twins and they're completely doing different things, but they're both doing something that they're passionate about, which that's the only part I'm happy about was the end of that sentence. If they're happy with what they're doing, then that's fantastic. But the rest of it is, yeah.
Going back to your question, there's a lot of things that surprised me here. Faith and church was another chapter. I wrote a whole chapter about faith and giving and doing good works. And then there were some surprising findings there as well.
I would imagine just thinking bigger than you. Like the older I get, the more I think thinking bigger than me is an important thing. You know, my community.
Yeah, we've lost that. I actually for Emily S. Safani Smith, who wrote The Power of Meaning. I just had her on Retire Sooner podcast, and I actually asked her about that. How do I dive deep into this thought around faith and going to church? And she gave me a very deep answer, and I wouldn't do it justice, but she grew up in a Sufi family, which was this really communal religious environment where people were really searching for meaning. And maybe it's me growing up Quaker around the Amish, but she went through this whole concept around how 50 years ago or 100 years ago, we almost had to, as society, have something bigger to believe in. And the more modern and more media involved we've become, and there's more social media, the easier it has been to look for external sources of that. And she went to Penn and she went to Dartmouth and she studied this her entire life. She actually studies positive psychology. But maybe she's right about that. And maybe that's why there's this interesting relationship. Just a little bit of church, what I found, just a little bit of church, for whatever reason, goes a really long way towards increasing the propensity to landing in this happy group relative to the unhappy group.
The book is called What the Happiest Retirees Know, 10 Habits for a Healthy, Secure, and Joyful Life. It is out tomorrow. Wes, where do we get it? Everywhere?
Yeah, I would say it's Amazon and it's wesmoss.com. And that's pretty much everywhere that we need to be.
You mentioned it earlier. People are in Atlanta. They can hear you on the longest running financial show that I think in the nation. But if we're not in Atlanta, you mentioned it a second ago, the Retire Sooner podcast. What do you got? What do you got cooking? Nobody listens to this show. If there's anything secret, you can just share it here. Just a couple buds.
Actually, I'm thinking about the schedule here is that Joe Saul-Sehy is coming up on the Retire Sooner podcast, which is really one of my favorite conversations I've had all year with you. So I thank you for coming on. It was awesome. And I've been in the financial industry like you for 25 years. And I just want somebody to be able to share something new, interesting, and have fun about it. In fact, I've done a fair amount of podcasts where I've done interviews and I've scrapped them. Hopefully you don't scrap this one, but if they're not interesting enough,
you're on the edge, man. You're on the edge.
If they're not good enough, I'm not going to air it. So that's kind of my promise to myself and to the listeners is that hopefully they're mostly at least pretty good.
I think they're fantastic. And I'm not talking about episode you and me had, but I absolutely love it. I take you running with me. So it's a good time. We'll link to it in the show notes and also the link to the book in the show notes. Wes, great seeing you again, my friend. You can step over next to the fish tank now and we'll go on finishing the show.
You're good. Thank you.
Hey, this is Lou Mangello from WDW Radio. And when I'm not at Walt Disney World or sharing my passion for Disney World or eating, I am stacking Benjamins.
Thanks to Wes for stopping by. It's funny. It's been a truism for a long time. Retire to something, not from something. But I love the way that Wes paints that picture for us. 4 things. You got your 4 things lined up?
No, I'm still in the middle of financially supporting my kids. So sadly, they're not happy and nor am I.
Nobody's happy in your family. I like that. It is so true because I feel very close to my kids. I feel great that they're both doing great. And we have a fantastic time. I was on a walk yesterday with Cheryl in the morning, and it's wild because Cheryl and I were beginning our day and Autumn was ending her day in Japan. So she was on her way home from work and we're just sipping coffee out on a walk, getting ready to head into work. It's always strange for me, but just love talking to my kids and hanging out with my kids. My son's about to go on a vacation with us to some national parks. So that'll be a good time. But yeah, if you support your kids, that's really not a shock, is it? That the kids are also miserable.
Yeah. It's not what they signed up for.
No, but that said, I feel like sometimes kids rely on parents just because they don't know where else to turn, which makes them even more miserable. Not miserable necessarily with mom and dad, just miserable with life.
Right.
So a lot of work to do there. Big thanks to Wes. What a great read and a fantastic study. And we'll have a link to it at our show notes page at stackingbenjamins.com. Of course, we'll also have lots of links about retiring happier in our newsletter, The Stacker, stackingbenjamins.com/stacker to get that. And some news coming up there that we're going to share here next week about the Stacker. Stacker's going bye-bye, OG. I guess I'll just say it here. Stacker's going away.
So we're not sharing it next week?
I'll share exactly what's happening. If you sign up for the Stacker, you're signing up for something that is going to be even better. But the Stacker is getting a reboot.
So it's not going away. It's getting a little facelift.
Yes. New name, new design, new little tweak on the idea. Had some great discussions in the basement about the show recently, and that led us to have a fantastic internal discussion about how to add even more value. So you want some value? Sign up early and you'll be there when all the fun changes happen in just a couple of weeks, but we'll explain more about that later. All right. Enough foreshadowing. Hey, let's take out the magnifying glass and help somebody do better with their money, OG. Today's hotline call comes to us courtesy of magnifymoney.com. When you head to stackingbenjamins.com/magnifymoney, you know what you find?
Lots of cool stuff.
It's so amazing that those financial products you use every day from your brick and mortar bank, nowhere near the best in class, because over 92% of all the products available online ranked head to head at magnifymoney.com, plus a fantastic blog that dives into the nitty gritty for somebody that really wants to know how the different accounts work, how different players in the fintech market work. It's all at magnifymoney.com. stackingbenjamins.com/magnifymoney tells them that we sent you. Today, we're going to help Steve magnify his money. Say hi, Steve.
Hey, Doug and Joe and OG. This is Steve calling from New Hampshire. I just wanted to let you guys know that I've learned a lot about personal finance by going to the Afford Anything podcast like you guys suggested. But since Paula does mostly real estate, I figured I would throw this one to you. I'm currently working on paying down some debt and was wondering if it makes sense to reduce my 403B contribution to my employer match and use the other money that I had been investing to more aggressively pay down debt. Interested in hearing what you guys have to say. On a side note, if Doug ever, decides to get out of the business, my mom always told me I had a face for radio, so just feel free to reach out to yours truly. I am a size medium and hope to hear my voice on the radio. See ya.
Congratulations on being a medium, Steve. Steve already knows, of course, that Gertrude just sends a code, so you get to choose whatever size you want. So, Steve, you decide to go with the extra small, just to make it all tight. Well, then you can do it. That's the cool thing about the way Gertrude does this. But congrats on the medium. That is nice. Let's dive into his question. OG, what are you thinking?
Reduce your contributions to retirement to pay off debt, but keep it at the employer match. So keep the free money, kind of the general sense of it, right?
Yeah.
Here's the pros and cons of that. If you've got a lot of debt to go and you're going to be reducing your retirement contributions for a long time, then the downside is you're missing out on that potential compounding. And we always talk about the last double being the most important one. And you want to get as much money in there as you can before you get to that last double. But obviously, if you have debt and you carry debt into retirement and and it affects your cash flow and before retirement and all that sort of stuff, then you're going to have an issue with getting enough money because you got to service all this debt, because you're going to have, if you have a $2,000 a month of credit card bills, that's $500,000 extra in retirement savings you need to have. Those are kind of the pros and cons of that. I would 100% focus on paying off the debt and put my contributions at the 403B max contribution number so that you get the company match. But this only works if you do that. It only works if you say, no matter what the difference was, that number, every paycheck, just like you used to be doing, you have to take the difference. You're going to pay more taxes, right? Probably because your 403B is probably a pre-tax contribution. So whatever the difference is in your take home, when you change that number, every single solitary paycheck has to go toward your debt. You can't wait. You can't accumulate it. You can't say, well, I'm going to save this up and build my cash reserve first, then I'll pay it off. But this month it's Christmas, so I probably should just take a little extra money out of it. You can do none of those things. Otherwise, you're just robbing from Peter and never paying Paul back. You're just robbing from yourself. And now what you've done is turned your former consumption habit, which is how you got the debt in the first place, into a current consumption habit that's going to only make you go backwards even faster.
Yeah. That was my very first thought, OG, that none of this matters if you don't change the root of the problem, which is how did you get into debt in the first place? Totally agree.
Yeah, you can tell that you recently wrote a book that was edited for clarity, because you're like, yeah, cool. Let me sum this up into like one phrase that we put on a t-shirt. It's the headline of a chapter. It's a summary.
But it's true. But what you're saying is right on. I mean, why go through all this rigmarole, right? Why do all this work if you're just going to find yourself back in debt again? So you got to solve the problem first, or it's all irrelevant. You're spinning your wheels.
The only way that it happens is if you actually do the stuff backwards, right? You have to you can't do the same old, because doing the same old is what got you in this place to begin with. Maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe you're like, I'll just knock this out in 6 months. Awesome. Try to knock out in 4. Increase your standard. Try to do better than saying like, well, I'll just get it knocked out. It's just going to take me 6 months, or it's going to take me 6 years, or whatever the number is. Be like, no, screw that. I'm going to do it in 4. Get motivated around it, But yeah, you have to do something different to kind of rewrite the record, because your record player plays one direction and it's been doing the same thing for a long time. You have to scratch that record up. Is that a reference that anybody gets still? A record? Scratching the record?
You got to spin it right round like a record, baby.
Yep.
Does anybody get that reference?
I get it.
Yeah, that's so important. And the other question that most people don't answer that I would be curious to know is, what is the impact on that goal before you make the move? Because what I think sometimes too, OG, is that our brains are pretty damn smart, but they're also very lazy, right? We've got an upcoming interview next Wednesday, and prepping for that interview, talking to this neurologist about the brain is incredibly, incredibly lazy. So if we can throw money at a problem, it just makes it go away for the brain, right? The brain's like, cool, I'll work on something else. But if we deprive ourselves of the easy fix, your brain often comes up with these cool strategies, these great ways to solve the problem. And the answer that we don't know, because what if he's already, what if he's already kind of screwed for retirement?
Yeah.
And he backs it down even more. Well, now he goes from screwed to even more screwed. And I remember listening, one of those gurus talking about this and saying, if you think you can't save now, imagine you're 62 and you haven't done any saving.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Steve hasn't saved. I don't know how much you've saved, but I would definitely want to know, what's the impact? If I make this, am I going to be okay? How does this change the goal? Because the other thing that does, OG, I think that also scares me and scares my brain into making sure I clean it up quickly, right? Sometimes that negative reinforcement is not a bad thing.
Avoid pain, gain pleasure. Those are the two things that you got to think about and try to figure out what motivates you the most. And if you're going to make a change to something that's working, your 403B savings are working and you're going to try to do some optimization thing, you go, well, it's probably better to do this. Then you better make it fast and very super painful just to get it over with so you can go back to investing the right way.
Sage advice, my friend, as usual. OG drops the mic.
I can't. They're super expensive.
StackingBenjamins.com/voicemail gets you to the place where we can help magnify your money. Steve, thanks again for calling in. And it sounds like he'd be a good fit in the basement if he's got a face for radio. All right, that's going to do it for today. Lots of people to thank. We're going to let Doug handle that. Hey, thanks to everybody who's left us a review. We've had some incredibly nice people leave reviews. Here's one Mom has on the fridge right now. E.T. Phone Home 2, fantastic show. I learn a lot, 5 stars. I know this show's for entertainment purposes only, but I somehow keep learning new stuff. One day I'll even be able to land the plane. I've listened to a lot of personal finance podcasts, but this is definitely one of the very best, Ellie. Thanks, Ellie, for that kind review. Mom's bragging about you upstairs. We're bragging about you here with all our Stacker family. So thanks a ton for hanging out, and thanks for taking the time to tell people about the show. And by the way, if you know somebody that needs this, is getting ready for Halloween, wants to do the economic game, or cool ways to teach our kids about economics, the Chuck Jaffe interview, I think, was a lot of fun. And if somebody's getting ready to retire, man, those lessons from Wes Moss today, those are good things. But there's a lot of good things. And I think we'll start there with Doug. Doug, what should we have learned today?
Sure thing, Joe. Why don't you get back to refilling your craft beer bottles with the cheap stuff, and I'll tell everybody what they should have learned today. First, take some advice from Wes Moss. You can't retire from something. You need to retire to something or for something. Preferably, you're retiring to at least 4 things. Second, take a cue from Chuck Jaffe. Even Halloween is a great time to teach some money management and market basics. Plus, it's fun for you and the kids. But the big lesson? No Bells or Lagunitas or Founders or even Boulevard on that top 10 beer list? Come on, more proof that what really fuels the USA is cheap beer. You'll find Wes Moss's Retire Sooner podcast wherever you listen to this podcast, and you'll find his book, What the Happiest Retirees Know, wherever you buy books. Thanks also to Chuck Jaffe for sharing his Halloween economics lesson. You'll find Chuck's podcast, Money Life with Chuck Jaffe, weird name, wherever you're listening to us right now. This show is the property of SB Podcasts, LLC, copyright 2021, and is created by Joe Saul-Sehy. Our producer is Karen Rapine. After you listen, check out our show notes page, written by our website manager and blog editor, Brooke Miller. Brooke and Joe also collaborate on a guide to the show and with lots of extras we couldn't include on today's podcast. Heck, they'll also throw in some life money lessons from Joe, and it's all free. It's called The Stacker, and you'll find it at stackingbenjamins.com/stacker. Once we get all of this goodness bottled up, it goes over to our engineer, the amazing Steve Stewart, who helps the rest of our team sound nearly as good as I do right now. Want to talk about the show later? Mom's friend Gertrude is the room mother in our Facebook group, The Basement. She also is our social media coordinator, so say hello when you see us posting online. Here's a weird fact. She and Tina Eichenberg are never in the same room at the same time. For a URL that'll take you right to our Facebook group, by the way, type stackingbenjamins.com/basement. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and remember, stackers, whatever you do, give 100%. Unless, of course, you're giving blood.
Welcome to the after show. This is the part of the show that doesn't exist. What happens in the after show, Wes, stays in the after show. We never talk about it. Well, let's put it this way. From time to time, we have people that need to talk about this part of the show. And when they do, we just ask, call it dessert, right? Just call it dessert. We don't talk about the after show.
I'm up for it.
I had something I've been wanting to ask you for a long time, because rarely do we have financial professionals on anymore. We don't have a lot of CFPs on, a lot of financial planners. We normally have people that, like you and I were talking about earlier in the show, that just have these wonderful stories, right? That I want to hear and I want to bring to light. And so I'm glad that you're both of those people, somebody with great stories and a financial professional. But the one thing that I'd love to hear from you, and feel free to change the name. And while you're thinking about it, I'll just tell you my story. All right. Because for everybody listening, I'm ambushing Wes with this. He's got no idea.
You're right. I have no idea what's coming.
No idea where I'm going.
You start talking about a fish tank in my office, by the way.
Everybody asks me when I was a financial planner and they would come into our office. So how am I versus other people, right? How am I? And I would always tell them, I'm sure you do too, I've seen everything and you're not as unique as you think you are. Things are going to be okay. Or, you're not, and by the way, who cares how you're doing versus it's you against yourself. So let's go get that. So I would have that down. So very rarely would something surprise me. But every once in a while, somebody would come in and it would be an epic moment that I could not share. So I've been out of the business for a long time. So I'll tell you about this couple that came in. I'm going to change their names. We'll call them Walt and Teresa. Walt and Teresa walk into my office and we get along immediately. They decide to hire me. And at the end of that meeting, then I send them home with some homework. They come back, they send the homework to me ahead of time, which is their budget, how they think they spend money. And, a lot of people didn't know how they spent money. And I would go look through it and they were guesses in a lot of times. But I'm looking through their budget and their budget is really tight. But they have this entertainment number that is $450 a month. And they've got cable listed separately. They've got travel listed separately. They have the restaurants listed separately, and they still have this $450 number. And I'm thinking, Wes, like a good financial planner, if this $450 is just in two places at the same time, because it was kind of close to everything else put together, I was like, that's $450 that I can teach them how to automatically save that, right? I can teach them how to hide it from them.
Yeah, almost $500 a month can move the meter. Yeah,
yes.
Over time.
And so now a lot of the problems they're worried about, we can solve them. So we sit down and we're walking through their budget. And I said, and frankly, I don't even care because we would have, 10 to 12 meetings a week. And I'm just the pro asking the question. So what's this $450? Walt looks at Teresa. Teresa looks back at Walt. They get very quiet, incredibly quiet. And Teresa says, I told you we shouldn't have listed that. And immediately I went from not caring at all to intensely caring. What the hell's the $450? And Walt's like, well, he told us to put everything. And Teresa's like, yeah, I know, but we shouldn't have put that. And now I'm like, well, okay, what is it? Something we can reduce, change? Let's just talk about it. What is it? And Teresa goes, man, I really don't know that we should tell you. And Walt goes, we should tell him. We talked about this last time, that he's got to be a part of the team. And so he should know everything. And I'm like, what the hell is this?
Brutal honesty.
Yes. And so, and by the way, I'm loving how they're talking about me, because that's who I need to be. I need to be on the team, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, guys, you know what? If you don't want to tell me, that's fine. And Teresa goes, no, it's okay. It's pot.
Oh my God.
And by the way, I don't know anything about pot, just not my thing, but I do know enough to know that's a load of pot.
Yes.
That is a lot.
That's awesome. By the way, that lived up to the expectation. I'm like, what is this? What is it? What is it?
Yes.
That is funny. This is a while ago, before it was legal. And
this has been easily 15 to 20 years ago. Yes. That happened. Yes.
So what did you say to that?
I just pretended it was okay. And I'm cool with that. Great. Fantastic. Cool. Yeah. Okay. I think I even said, I'm like, I don't know much about pot, but that's a lot of pot. And Walt says, yeah, that's what I keep saying.
That is a lot. It sounds like a lot to me.
Do you think maybe we could cut the pot in half? Like maybe we go a little lighter on the pot, because that's still $225, guys.
It's a lot. That's crazy.
Decent amount of money. Anyway, that's an epic meeting that I had that was different than many. You must have, over your long career, have something that has stuck out where you can maybe change the names.
Yeah. Well, and I do, by the way, I do that in the book a lot, except for my dad and maybe my mom. But
like, I didn't know that Ron and Rita Margarita were your in-laws.
They're loosely based on my in-laws.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll combine these stories.
Sure.
Some are clients, some are in-laws.
Yep.
So, as soon as you said that, I'm wondering, I'm trying to answer this question in my head too. I'm like, what's Joe going to ask me? What is this? And I'm thinking, I will say that very often see people that they're guilty about their spending, because they know they're doing something kind of wrong. And I think a lot of Americans, if you're honest with yourself, you're guilty about something.
Everybody's got a guilty. Yes.
Oh, we're spending way too much on that. And I'm thinking for a minute here about our normal family that I work with over all these years is very millionaire next story. So they're relatively frugal and relatively conservative on their spending. However, there's two things that come to mind. One, I'm always fascinated with the uniqueness of how people get to $1 million, $5 million. And even though they usually share a couple things, they're super hardworking, they're either a professional, or they have their own business, or they're creative. The actual DNA of getting there, the fingerprint, is almost always totally unique, which I think is fascinating and cool.
Yeah. That there are multiple paths to greatness.
It's almost infinite, right? It's almost infinite possibilities and paths. However, I've had anywhere from lottery winners, where straight up scratch off lotto, that have come, hey, I literally brought in the lotto card, $3 million scratch off. So that was a shocker. And I was like, just don't lose this thing. Right. Don't lose it. All the way to a family that, two stories. One, the hobby money that they were kind of snickering about, like, well, where's this money coming in? There's a spending number, and then there's the income. I'm like, what is this hobby line? And it's gambling. And they do these Texas Hold'em tournaments.
And they're making money gambling?
I'm calling it Jim and Kathy.
Yeah.
They're doing these Texas Hold'em tournaments that are like a couple grand to join, and they'll go up 10 grand, and then they'll go down 7 grand, and they'll go up 10 grand. And they're like, oh, we get comped everywhere. But it wasn't enough. They kind of kept it in this safe range. It was always kind of like never more than 10 grand total. And for them, that didn't move the meter a ton. So that was interesting. And then maybe on a less fun note, I've had some couples where one had some sort of hidden money habit, and one of them is gambling.
Oh, yeah.
Once in a while you'll hear about this, but to see it and just the devastating impact, or somebody who has things figured out financially, but if one spouse has a habit that can all of a sudden be, oh, wait, hey, I need $27,000 this month. Well, wait a minute. You usually need 2. Well, how 27? Oh, it's just a one-time thing.
Yeah.
And 2 or 3 months later, oh, I need, it's my, another excuse. Like, oh, this is for my daughter. Okay. 30 grand. Wow. 30 grand. So I have seen some of these insidious habits really ruin people financially. And it's not a stretch to see how that can happen, but there's this, in this particular case, there's so much guilt around it, and it's the spouse, and you're the one always covering for that spouse. So I've seen that really be really detrimental. And you can try as an advisor and a therapist to do everything you can possible to try to have them get a hold of it. You get the couple together, you try to talk about it, but at some point they have to make the decision.
I was going to say it's beyond you at some point.
Yeah, at some point it's beyond us as advisors, and doesn't always work. And I've seen some people go down a not so great path. So I hate to end on a bad story note, but that's maybe I don't write about this in the book, but that's a quintessential unhappy retiree.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that. I luckily never had anybody with a gambling habit that I knew of, but I did have a client call me one time right after they hired me. She called me and said, Rick does not know that we have $65,000 in credit card debt, and I'm hoping you won't tell him.
Ouch. Oh, well, so how did you handle that?
I told her that I couldn't not tell him, that if they're both hiring me on the ADV, I'm both of their advisors, not hers, not his. I'm both. So I said, you know what though? And we'll call the woman Sharon. I said, you know what, Sharon? It's, which is funny, Sharon and share, because my next thing is, I think it's probably time. I think this is, the universe is telling you this is the time. And the only way to get out from under this is to come clean about it, right? At some point, you just got to let him in and say, hey, this is it. Because it's not going to get better without that. There's no way that I can help you funnel money to pay this off and not have him involved.
And ultimately they did, or at least they decided to share that. I mean, if somebody's going to tell you about their pot, the $500 a month in pot, they're going to tell the spouse are going to share, look, we've got this credit card debt. We got to get rid of it.
Right. But the people who collected goat hair for a living, that did not, you're having the reaction a lot of people do. Hey, seen it. It's whatever. Yeah. Hey, you make money. Great. Somebody had this thing where they, in Michigan, it was 10 cents a can, which now because of inflation is nothing. These people for fun would go around college campuses on game day weekends, and they would just go pick up cans, and they would make crap loads of money just getting returnables off of tailgates. Like they would.
Did you have to go from, was it you collect in Michigan and then go to across the border in Indiana to do the can thing?
It was all in Michigan.
It's all Michigan. Okay.
Yes. And when I moved back for a couple of years, just recently, just standing in that line for 10 cents a can, the ROI was no longer there. Like, and well, I don't know if it's also that I'm not bougier, right? I'm like, I don't really care about it. But I found out that our local scout troop would collect them, and they'd take the money, and I'd just, every other month I would have them stop by my house and just pick up the things, and they could stand in line at 10 cents a can. So,
well, you made me nervous on that question. I was like, what? It's hard to top that one though. It's hard to top the $450 a month.